We believe once we eliminate the barriers in a systematic manner, avoiding discriminatory practices, definitely women and youth should be able to meet the target. And more importantly is the need for affirmative action. We all believe special measures need to be taken to eliminate discrimination. It's just a natural phenomenon. We have to provide that space for them to get confidence in what they're doing and to be able to build in terms of training. Next slide. So we are saying in the protocol on women and youth, you realize that there are various articles that speak to issues around non-tariff barriers, which I already mentioned. There are areas that speak to social development. There are areas that speak in terms of financial access. It's very important. Establishing measures for financial literacy programs, creating funding schemes and specific sectors, and affordable financial instruments and guarantees. How about the bank law to stand behind somebody, financial institution? That a very prominent young lady came in, she wanted a loan. They say, go and call the husband. Because the lady said, what are you talking about? I'm here, I have all the documents, I'm qualified for this loan. The man said, go and call your husband. So the question is the husband presence necessary in terms of her business? That's completely discrimination. Because it's not the husband's presence that makes a difference. It's the wit of the woman and what she thinks she can deliver. And once she's qualified, she has to be addressed based on her ability to deliver. And we're talking about programs that are going to support women to be able to move trade in the right direction. Give them the financial support. Let them know the issues. Give them the financial literacy. Create the right schemes for them to be able to move businesses across the borders with a view to supporting the economy. Next slide. So we are saying also, in terms of trade facilitation, simplifying the issues is very important. The processes are very, very, very simple. When I come to the border, I'm a woman. I should know exactly the steps to follow in a simplified manner. I don't want to bribe anybody. I know if I come to the border, this is the border. Point A, I submit my documents. I should be able to know what documents you require. In terms of what you want for immigration, I should be able to know exactly what I should submit. In terms of the amount of money I should pay, I should be able to be clear as to what I should pay for my goods and where I should pay, when I should pay, and why I should pay. So that it's a simplified trade mechanism, procedures and processes to reduce complexities across borders. And this is where the problem comes. Because before they arrive there, Chachaman would have told them, you have to do this one thing, you have to. And sometimes she doesn't even know why she's leaving, but she's now being forced because Chachaman has said you have to do small things. These are the things we're talking about. And now we need to talk about digital platform. We need to support and encourage participation in digital platform to create the linkages with international suppliers and buyers as well as potential partners. This knowledge is very vital. If you have this knowledge, you can trade across borders without even having to pay a dime to somebody to support you. You can be seated there if you use the PAPS system. You transfer money to Kenya, and you arrive in Kenya, you're able to do business and back home safely. These are the things we're talking about in the protocol. Now we need to have safety and security. We need to ensure that women feel comfortable in terms of trade, not only thinking about being harassed when and moving across borders. But more importantly, we build an ecosystem which should integrate market systems to ensure that we take advantage of the AfCFTA. Next slide, please. So let us look at what we stand to gain benefits in terms of access to markets. Definitely, this protocol will help us expand market research. It will help us be able to unlock the unprecedented market opportunities business across the continent. Definitely, it will provide access to trade infrastructure, warehouse and logistics network. But more importantly, it will expand customer base out to countries in the continent, despite the fact that one of the countries are still yet to sign. Nigeria is still yet to sign. But for now, we have 50 countries that have ratified the AfCFTA agreement. I think that's a big market for our women. So we're saying if we take advantage of this particular protocol, we will enjoy a lot of benefits. We were here listening to the director of trade facilitation from our affiliating bank talking about 50 billion set of bids signed in the African trade here in Nigeria. I wonder what would be the situation in Nigeria. We'll be talking about over $100 billion because I know Nigeria have that might, they have that ability to push. So these are the things we're talking about: creating visibility and participation in trade fairs, conferences, and business expos. So we're looking forward to supporting the people ensuring that they are able to take advantage of market access. Next slide, please. Capacity building. Protocol takes us to support technical training, providing comprehensive issues, regulatory frameworks, mentoring programs that are going to definitely be very good incubators, supporting business coaching, innovation and guidance, and sharing experience. But more importantly, the digital trade literacy is going to be enhanced. Where we will be able to create e-commerce platforms, marketing strategies, and other online payments. We've just spoken about PAPS, an African payment and settlement systems. A system already created for us, supported by the bank, which is going to help us do away with dollarization. I can pay Naira and collect South Africa around the United States. At the click of a finger, the thing is done. It's not going to take 5 minutes as long as the system, you understand how it operates. Those online platforms are what we're talking about to promote trade. We're talking about export readiness. This entire process supports export readiness with a view to ensuring that specific value chains are discussed, supply chains are discussed, custom procedures are discussed, international trade documentations are discussed, all with a view to ensuring we are building human capacity to trade. We're investing in human capacity. So this protocol is all what you need as private sector to move businesses across the continent. Next slide. Most important, one of the most important, because I always think finance is not the most important in trade. It's just one of the most important issues we need to talk about. But the protocol supports tailored financial programs, support sector incentives, credit access, risk mitigation. All you need to know about this protocol is the fact that there are specialized instruments designed for women in terms of favoring them, and they are flexible enough to move the process forward. I mean, we target high sector growth, which are historical for women's participation. We talk about agro-processing, we talk about soya, we talk about cocoa, we talk about the textile industry. Now we're talking about support to the automotive industry. There are issues around which you can address carefully along the value chains to take you to promoting your businesses, especially when the SMEs taking advantage of those opportunities. So all these are defined within the protocol. And we talk about insurance products and trade facilitation tools that reduce risk in terms of cross-border transactions. We need to know the facts here. We know there are a lot of new tools created. in terms of non-tariff barriers. And to trade, there are issues around where to report in terms of NTVs. There are issues around how do you address problems when there is dispute settlement, where do you report, how do you report. All these are clear to us, supporting the moving was voluntary. Next slide, please. In terms of productive and export capacity, building export readiness businesses. We talk about technological transfer, we talk about industrial development, manufacturing, and we talk about improving profit margins. But most important is market visibility, strategic participation in international and business forum. Exposure. Those fora give to business women. The networks they create, the linkages they get from this fora, they're just very vital businesses to do. Women have and need how to take advantage of this important program for them to be able to move their businesses forward. When IATF Nigeria was organized and we had a back talking about this was 50 billion. I would imagine when a country like Nigeria organizes the IATF in 2020, what they need to achieve. Because Nigeria is much geared up in terms of small businesses than Nigeria. So it's an opportunity for them to take advantage of. Yeah. So please think about this. And the element of quality enhancement of products, branding, packaging, and compliance. These are all defined in the framework of the protocols. You have to try to understand this issue and take advantage. Next slide. The new kid in the block, digital opportunities. I'm happy Nigeria is going to host the digital forum 2026 May. We are going to host a digital forum. This is a very platform which will bring in a lot of opportunities. But what is important is connecting established digital marketplaces and e-commerce platforms, reaching out to the continental audience. I've been told I should be wrapping up, and I'm already wrapping up. So don't worry, I know I'm already wrapping up. So you have to take advantage of these things. Next slide. Next slide, please. Formal trading. Moving your business from the informal to the formal. Many people think because they tax me, well, not stay informal. Do so much when you stay informal. You make so much profit, so much benefit when you move your business to the formal sector. There are so much opportunities which you benefit. Next slide. Protection and safety measures. This one is glaring. In terms of policy frameworks, how do you ensure that the trade environment being developed? What support mechanisms to put in place? These are all defined in the protocols. Next slide. In terms of intellectual property and competition, I need not say much about this because it's affecting your businesses now, especially in Nigeria. Next slide. In terms of business community impact, you are felt cheap business people. Many times you've been able to face the challenges one way or another. Sometimes using agility, but which you should not be doing. But definitely there is room for expansion, strategic partnership, innovation, competition, and above all, we're talking about meaningful sustainable development. Next slide. I'm just abstracting this whole thing because I'm done now. What we want to talk about now is conclusion and call to action, which is the most important thing. What do we need to do? How do we address issues around support? How do we address issues around engaging youth in business in terms of safety? How do we establish industry associations, policy dialogue, like this one we have now? It's an example. You have to go. So we want to tell you that there is so much to be done, but create room for further discussion along. Last but not the least, so thank you for listening. I think we are done. Thank you.
Please give another round of applause to Mr. Tamara Abdul for making that very useful presentation. I've had some questions. People have come to me to say, is it going to be interactive? Will there be questions? Yes, but we are backloading all the questions. After all the sessions, we'll take some time to ask the questions. So I'll say to you, please note your questions, write them down as we go from protocol to protocol. Now, coming to take us through the AfCFTA protocol on investment, because we have a number of presentations on trade, we have two speakers on investment. The first one will come to talk to us about the overview of what the protocol of investment, or what it means. And he'll be coming to us from the United Nations in Geneva. The second speaker will talk us through the core pillars of the protocol on investment. And she's coming to us from IISP in Burkina Faso. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first part of that presentation, help me put your hands together for Mr. Hamid El Khali, Chief of the IIA section of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development.
Thank you very much, Patience. It's a great honor to be with you today. I must say the energy of Patience is amazing whenever she's presenting a speaker, and then it comes to the speaker. So thank you, Patience, for all the positive energy. So yes, thank you. Next slide, please. The next, yes, thank you. So I'm here to talk to you about the investment protocol and why it's important, and specifically why it's important for a big country like Nigeria. Allow me first, of course, to thank the ministry, thank Her Excellency Dr. Odowoli, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, and also thank the government for the very warm hospitality. Thank you so much. Very happy to be in this beautiful city of Abuja. So let's look at the legal framework governing investment in Africa. The legal framework for investment is really composed of hundreds and hundreds of bilateral investment agreements. These agreements, the problem with them is that they are very old. They have been concluded decades ago. The second problem that they have is that at that time, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the only objective of an investment treaty was one thing. How, as a country, should I maximize investment protection? Only how to maximize investment protection. And then, of course, later on, there was a realization that no matter how much you protect investment, that is not a magic stick that investors will come just because you are giving them some legal protections. So it's a very complicated framework with overlapping commitments. You also have regional investment frameworks, such as the one in ECOWAS, COMESA, SADC. So the regional integration groupings have their own investment agreements that are building on overlapping bilateral investment agreements. That all of these come, of course, on top of your national laws and regulations and the contracts between individual ministries and investors. So it's basically the key message here. It's a complicated framework. Next slide, please. And so, from that perspective, what does the AfCFTA investment protocol offers? We have heard today from Her Excellency Madame la Ministre, it is the largest free trade area in the world. It is not only about goods, trade and goods, but it's also about services, it is about investment, industrialization. And investment, of course, we all know the huge potential of investment in creating jobs and increasing productivity. The last bullet point is very important. No country, especially in today's world, can really navigate, can really grow without having a very strong regional integration framework. We are living in a very different world than in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We have all faced cascading global crises, public health, financial crisis, environmental crisis, rising debts, rising inequalities. So the importance of regionalism, and of course challenges multilateralism, the importance of regionalism cannot be highlighted enough. Next slide, please. So this very briefly what the UN Trade and Development does. The UN Trade and Development has been established for developing countries. We have been working very closely with the Secretariat of the AfCFTA and providing expertise and best practices. UNCTAD does three things: research and policy analysis, consensus building, and technical analysis and capacity building. And here in the AfCFTA investment protocol, Madame Okala is a very bright example of someone who successfully had two hats, initially as a member of the AfCFTA, initially as a Nigerian negotiator and subsequently as a member of the AfCFTA task force. So what is the protocol about? It's not just a friendship agreement. This is a legally binding continental agreement among more than 50 countries. So it's really a tremendous achievement. Next slide, please. What does it do? It shows an amazing political achievement. And as you all know, the African continent is a very diverse continent in terms of not only economic sides, but also language, culture, and so having a framework plus all of these protocols really shows an African unity and a shared commitment to a common vision. What's very special about the protocol also is that it moves away from the old way of looking at investment treaties. It's not only about protection. Protection has one chapter, but it also has investment facilitation, and we are hearing increasingly that investors are looking on how do you make my business easier on a day-to-day basis. So facilitation, promotion, and my colleague Dr. Susie will speak more about the foundation pillars of that. Next slide, please. And here I want you to we stop here for 30 seconds. The protocol, beyond the amazing substantive achievement, has really made a very big step for Africa. For 50 years, all of the African countries were only receiving requests to negotiate, receiving treaties to sign, where there was only a place at the bottom of the treaty and your signature here. There was very little negotiations. This is changing. This is changing. The AfCFTA Investment Protocol is an innovative agreement, and it goes actually beyond that. It is now a reference point for non-African countries. Next slide, please. It also consolidates, so I'm going to conclude in the next slide. It also consolidates the fragmented network that we saw in the very first slide. So all these hundreds of bilateral investment treaties will be replaced. So there will be less headache for countries, and I argue less headaches also for investors. Because instead of having 20, 30, or 40 investment agreements, you will have one for all of Africa. Any African company investing in another African country, whether it is Egyptian, Moroccan, Nigerian, South African, will be governed by one single framework. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, I think we had a meeting a few minutes ago on the importance of implementation. So now we have a paper, we have an amazing treaty, but obviously it's still a piece of paper without implementation. Implementation is key. So we are very happy, we are very proud of the innovations, of the binding commitments in it, but there is now the need to move ahead with the implementation, which potentially would require the contracting parties to adapt their national laws and to review their investment and policies. If this is done successful, we will now move from an era where you remember how the measurement of a successful investment policy is on quantity. How much FDI did I get? Business ranking. I want to be ranked number one. How much did I get? How much did I get? There is a movement now to what did the investment do? The impact. I don't care about money coming in and out of the country as much as before. I want to know, what did the investor do? Which kind of technology did they transfer? What is the nature and quantity of the jobs they have created? These are the real measurement of a successful investment policy. So we're moving beyond quantity to quality. I would like to stop here because my colleague, Dr. Nkema, will also speak about the complementary issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. If I can get my slide up. Excellency, Minister of Industry, Trade, President of Nigeria, distinguished participants. It's my pleasure to be today with you to present the content of the protocol on investment of the AfCFTA. And it's really a pleasure to do so after my great presentation of my colleague for making my life easier. So I was asked to provide an overview of the content of the protocol, which is a very complicated task because it's quite a dense instrument. And before to do that, I would like maybe to remind you something we are not thinking enough about. When you read AfCFTA, you only see continental free trade agreement. So you may ask yourself, what investment is doing here? Because we are talking about trade. Let me remind you that before the trade, we need investment, produce the goods and the services to be able to trade. So I want to believe, not only because I'm working on this space, but it is an important element. So, what is in the protocol? You can see it's quite a long and technical document. I mean, we'll see it's a bigger one. We have 8 chapters already adopted, but we also have upcoming annexes. But still need to be finalized or adopted. I don't even try to provide a summary of what you can find in every single chapter. I think that would be very boring for us today, particularly at almost 1 p.m. What I propose to do is to present to you what are the core functions of the protocol trade issue and what it will require from you, public commissions, private sector, and also media, civil society, to do to issue this core function. Next, please. So I think there are 4 core functions we can see in the AfCFTA. This is my personal categorization, but I think everyone in the protocol can also come with different approaches to summarize the content. The first one is enabling investment promotion and facilitation. This is a key one, and Ahmed was talking about that. Today, we already recognize that it's really about facilitating and promoting intra-African investment. The second one is to provide a coherent protection standard to investors. And I'm insisting on the coherent thing, because that's something important to fix the kind of patchwork framework that Ahmed El-Kadi presented in the beginning of his presentation. And then importantly, because we are not looking just at quantity of investment, but quality of investment, the protocol also has a lot of elements on how to ensure that we attract and promote quality investment that brings sustainable development, positive outcome in countries. And as I zoom here, institutional support,
for thinking already about implementation and bring this paper to reality. So I will go briefly on each of these functions to understand what the protocol, how the protocol is trying to address this function, and give you some few examples of concrete actions you have to do in terms of requirement from the protocol. So, enabling investment promotion and facilitation. How does the protocol perform this first important function? First, and I think that will be very important, particularly from the private sector, there are some measures on how to promote Africa as a top destination for investment. And what is really beautiful here is not going on every single state party promoting itself only, but also the continent as a whole, which is the spirit of the export. And then we have measures to streamline investment procedure, business. I think someone was talking about from African but in terms of trade, the realities are always struggling in the borders. I can say in investment also you have a similar problem where it's on your day-to-day to establish a business, to run a business when you are facing so many administrative burdens, it's really very complicated. So the protocol provides a measure on how to reduce this problem. And then transparency and access to information. Because one reality to the continent as well is that an element of the public officials sometimes getting the text, having access all the procedures and rules is sometimes very complicated. So measure to make encourage the countries to publish and also whatever to make accessible so it should be completely accessible to all stakeholders. African services is also something very important, including for cross-border investment. That's also something very active to emphasize. And also, of course, encourage incentive policies for investment. Next, please. I don't want to go one by one in terms of concrete example of obligation and investment protocol is requiring, but this is something also to highlight here. Protocol on investment provide from one end some very binding legal obligations, so you have to implement them. But also recognize that in some circumstances it has to leave room for countries on how they want to information and benefits. And this is also something important. So here, for example, in terms of obligation, one very concrete requirement, facilitate visa. This is a very concrete element that can really help improve and facilitate investment within the continent. And also, publish national investment laws, as I said. Maybe something that would be very interesting for our colleagues from the private sector is that the protocol strongly encourage state parties within themselves and between them, including at the regional level, to organize joint investment promotion activities. Again, this idea to sell Africa as a destination for investment. So I do hope that Nigeria, but also regional communities, might also engage in this kind of promotion activities. Next, please. The second one is providing coherent investment protection. And I will go quite quickly on this because my colleague Ahmed already talked about that. But it's important to understand that these protections are already there. The issue is how to make them coherent, and also how to make them balanced. And the innovation in this protocol is that it provides protection to investors, which is legitimate. They have to be protected from, let's say, opportunistic behavior or arbitrariness from government, unfortunately, that can happen. But do it in a way that preserves the right of the state as well to pursue legitimate public objectives. Because at the end of the day, we are looking for investment for development. And it also provides clear requirement on how to address this overlapping legal framework, which is not good for anyone, not regards the non-private sector or the local communities. And importantly, something else we have to keep in mind, this protocol is for boosting intra-African investment. But we cannot ignore what is happening for investment from non-African countries. And here what the protocol is trying to do is, let's have a coherent framework within the continent. And let's make sure that what we are doing great between ourselves, we also try to get the same in our interaction with investors from all the continents and the countries, which is also something important in my view to ensure a level playing game for intra-African investors, but also investors coming from the US or China or France, for example. And there are also here some public obligation and also some major operation by the countries to take into account. And I think maybe I want to highlight only one element here, which is very important at national level. You need to make sure you domesticate some of the statements in your national laws. The contract we're negotiating with investors. Otherwise, you only have this nice instrument at the continental level, but not translated in the laws and policy, but ultimately governing investment in a specific country. Next, please. Sustainable development and responsible investment. This is also the third important pillar of the investment project. And it's really someone very innovative. Because here the protocol, I told you, is provide protection to investors, but also remind them you have obligations. So it's not only about doing investment with no consideration of social aspect, but communities and global protection. We want to do quality investment. So the protocol will remind investors their obligation in that regard. But it also reminds the state it's your responsibility as well to make sure you have this policy and law in place so you can make investors comply with them when they come to your country. So that's something very important, and we know how important it is to protect the community rights, to protect consumer rights, labor rights, etc. So these are very important areas we find in this protocol. And it also, of course, discourage or prohibit, let's say, harmful practices, but unfortunately, some investors, not all of them, some investors they have in this space in terms of social issues, corruption, etc. Next, please. And I don't know how long minute I have, but I still have. Okay, great. So here again, there are some concrete obligations. If when you access to the PowerPoint, you can see concrete example, and if you want to move to the protocol to see exactly how, what kind of requirement, what kind of action the protocol is putting on both the investor and the state to make sure ultimately we attract sustainable investment. Last but not least, next slide. Institutional coordination and support. This is something very important. And I have to say from the very beginning, in the negotiation of the protocol of investment, and myself and we were fortunate to be part of the task force supporting the Secretary to negotiate this protocol. We said, let's already think about implementation. So the idea to create a Pan-African trade and investment agency was discussed and established in the protocol to make sure we have an institutional support to implement the protocol. And there are many other elements that the protocol provides, particularly regarding dispute, investment dispute. Of course, we don't want to talk about dispute when we are trying to promote investment, and that's fair. But we also know that the reality is that the kind of things that can happen. So how do we make sure we prevent as much as possible this to become in the first place, and when they raise unfortunately, but you have adequate results before you get to the litigation in that space. So that's also something very important that the protocol is putting in place. Next slide. Of course, one important thing here to keep in mind is that we need now to operationalize the pattern, which unfortunately is not yet to the base, but I hope Nigeria can be again also in that sense. And also, there are a lot of notification and action each member state, including Nigeria, should take into place to cooperate with this agency, but also the ICH already in terms of implementation. And I will end here my slide, my presentation with my concluding remarks. which actually are well aligned with what my colleague Hamid Ekader said. Now it's implementation time. We want to provide some support protocol to deliver to support implementation. And at ISD, we are glad to and we remain able to support government ocean communities in this journey. So I will stop here, and I hope I give you a sense of what you can find in the protocol and an interest trying to understand more and look at this protocol because it's important for implementation that all stakeholders understand and go with this instrument. Thank you.
Please give a louder round of applause, one for Susie and one for Dr. Kali. Thank you very much. We'll move very quickly. But just to say that we also received indications that there are some participants that want the PowerPoint presentations. We'll make it available to you. Hopefully, when you were registering, you actually indicated your email addresses. If you did not, maybe during lunch will be a good time for you to indicate so that we compile your email addresses and send them to you. Like I mentioned earlier, we're taking questions at the end of the presentation today, at the end of the day today. And we'll focus on questions from the public sector and the private sector. The reason being that the press will have a field day tomorrow. So all the experts will be sitting with the press tomorrow morning, and the press can take their pound of flesh, as it were. So today we will focus on public sector and private sector. I've also been informed that the Honorable Minister will be appearing during the network news tonight. Somewhere, please clap for Honorable Minister for volunteering to take this interview. We deeply appreciate it, so I'll ask everybody, make sure you tune in, watch 9 o'clock news tonight, and then let's have support the Honorable Minister live. Now we're going to take a 5-minute health break, and we'll have a young man that will help us do that. Can I kindly request that everybody stand up? Yeah, all work and no play. We had coffee break, we listened to a lot of speeches, we have 2.5 more to go. But before that, let's have the music and kindly cooperate. Thank you.
On the guy. Where is he going now?
Alright, ask your neighbor, are you panting? If you are not panting, you are not following the instructions. I was going to see that, and I saw the honorable minister very invested in the health break. And some of you were looking for her to sit down. Let's catch our breath. It's after this break, nobody can sleep. And the next presentation, you will understand it very clearly because your blood is flowing. All right. For the presentation of the protocol on trading goods under the AfCFTA, help me welcome to the stage the Chief Technical Advisor to the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, Mr. Gilberto Antonio. People are still panting, don't
worry. Thank you very much. Great. No.
Trading goods.
Trading goods. Something. Yes, great. Okay. No, thank you very much. So my presentation will be on trading goods, and I think we can start by the basic. Not really the basic is you will hear, you will listen, you will read a lot about the AfCFTA. Heads of state and government are very vocal about it. Leaders of the industry, Honorable Minister, Bank, and some of the institutions talk about how this is game changing. So there's this political importance of this flagship project. I think it's good to start to reasoning on why the AfCFTA is so important. Next slide, please. So all of us, we agree that the Africa is a huge market in terms of the potential consumer, 1.4 billion people, but also in terms of the geographic area. If you compare Africa with Europe, Africa is 3 times larger. If you compare with India, the same population, Africa is 10 times larger. However, we know also that there's a border complexity. In the continent, there's over 100 land borders, and for the economic operators crossing the border can meet with some other regulations and practice, what is quite a challenge. And we know also that we have 1.4 billion people, but the population is not distributed equally. We have more than 20 countries where you have less than 10 million people. And for some economic projects, fertilizer, oil refinery, you need quite a big population for the economy of scale. And also, what is important, if we compare with other continents, other regions, there are quite some challenges related with the high transport cost and long and complex import and export procedures. So the AfCFTA seeks to address this challenge by having established a liberalized single market for goods and services supported by harmonized and simplified customer and trade procedures. Next slide, please. The AfCFTA is also here to deal with the gap that exists between Africa's potential and Africa's reality. The potential is there in terms of human resource. I mentioned 1.4 billion people. In terms also of the youth, 60% of the African population is under age 25. In terms of the mineral resource, Africa owns 30% of the world mineral reserve. We have a huge reserve in terms of gold, platinum, cobalt, but the reality is that there's no single African country that is competitive at the global level. What we produce every year as a continent is less than 10% of the global GDP. And what we trade, what the 55 countries trade, is only 2.1% of the global trade. This beside having the 70% of the world population. So there's this gap. And the AfCFTA is intended to enhance the competitiveness of an African economy by strengthening regional value chain and creating jobs through local processing, attracting investment by allowing trade barriers and offering a unified market. Next slide. One important element is also if you compare what is happening in Africa and what is happening with the rest of the world. So in terms of intra-regional trade, in Europe, they trade among themselves around 70% of the total trade in Europe. In Asia is around 60%, while in Africa, the intra-African trade is only 18%. But what is important, if we go through, we see what we are exporting. We are exporting more to the rest of the world than to Africa, but what we are exporting is essential raw material. 63% of what we are exporting almost 6% that we are exporting are raw material. While if you see what we are exporting in Africa is more selling and processing goods. So if we increase this 80%, it means that we are also increasing the semi-processed and processed goods. That is also in terms of job creation more important. Next slide. So the AfCFTA is a large discrete trade area. Is the largest one since the creation of the World Trade Organization, both in terms of the numbers of the participants. They are yes. Can we continue and you ask the question now? Okay. Yeah, okay.
Something's wrong.
So this is the largest area, and we have to create this single African market, tariff elimination, systematic elimination or reduction of the tariff and no tariff area. When it comes to trade and service, it's a really comprehensive liberalization of the trade and service, open new markets, new opportunity for professional service, for telecommunication, for financial sectors, etc. We have also a robust legal framework that's covering investment. We had a presentation a few minutes ago, intellectual property rights, competition policy in emerging areas like digital trade. When it comes to customer, we have trade facilitation measures, enhanced cooperations intended to reduce transaction costs and delay. And also very important is that we have a comprehensive mechanism for settlement of the trade disputes, ensuring a fair and transparent resolution of a commercial conflict. Next slide, please. So this is what is World Bank project. If we fully implement the AfCFTA in terms of economic impacts, so there will be 30 million people who will go out of extreme poverty. They will also impact in terms of income, in terms of exports. And what is also important is that there will be increase in terms of wage, both for skilled and non-skilled. So because we are having a discussion among the captain of industry, business, and the private sector in general, this is some of the benefit for business, for Nigerian business. One is in terms of expanded markets. So if you are producing or if you are trading, you will not just focus on the Nigerian market, but you can also be focused on other markets that are interested in your product. It's also create a new trade opportunity beyond traditional markets. If you export quite often to Africa, but more often to ECOWAS, with AfCFTA, you will have other markets like the South African one and the other countries. And for what is also important, given what is happening in the world with AGOA and the geopolitical tension, it will reduce African dependence on the European and American markets. And for SMEs, there's a windows to enhance profitability, taking advantage of the price difference between the markets here and some other African countries. I mentioned the need of an economy of scale when you have you are producing in some areas you need a quite huge market, and also will create visibility for local product in African market. Next slide. Also very important is for SMEs, for African companies, is that you will see your competitiveness increase. Before AfCFTA, for you, there's a huge challenge in terms of high customer duty for your product, in terms of the complexity of the customer procedures, also in terms of competition from lower cost Asian and European products. With the AfCFTA, given that there will be gradual elimination of the customer duty, your products will increase in terms of competitiveness, making more affordable, given that the export price will decrease. And also the reduced non-tariff barriers for simplified customer procedure will have an impact in terms of having your product more competitive. So the direct positive impact is improved value for money proposition for Africa products, expanding market access without tariff surcharge, and lower logistical cost, increasing profit margin for SMEs. Also important is that with the AfCFTA, you can be part of regional value chain. And will have also impact in terms of industrial partnership, in terms of having a strategic industrial partners with other institutions of African countries,
in terms also of exporting semi-processed or finished goods rather than raw material, in terms also of the diversified products range to meet specific regional markets demand. Last but not least is in terms of stimulating growth to local SMEs and also in terms of attracting investors. One investor or investor may come to Nigeria because you have input there that they need, because you are very competitive in terms of the labor force, but they can produce here for the entire continent. So there's a window to attract more investors, more investment that will come to Nigeria, not just for Nigerian market, but for to produce the entire continent. We are working a lot in terms of also having finance available. We know that trade finance is a challenge for some companies, so we are doing that by creating partnership with the African Bank. We have a memorandum of understanding with the UBA, we have with the Equity Bank, and we are working also with some other banks to make available funds for SMEs. One particular agreement that we have, we co-launch with the AfCFTA Bank, the AfCFTA Adjustment Funds. We intend to mobilize 10 billion USD. For the moment, we have 1 billion that is available for you on your productive and exports planning project. Okay, now I can start discussing about the protocol on trade in goods. That is really the framework for the movement of goods across African borders under the AfCFTA. There is a provision, there are tools intended to increase intra-African trade. One of them I mentioned is the elimination of tariff and reductions of non-tariff barriers. The idea is to reduce trade costs systematically across the continent. We have also procedures or provisions to facilitate transit and customer processing to improve speed and efficiency at the border, and also harmonization in terms of standard and procedures to create a predictable trade environment. So the protocol is intended to ensure predictability and transparency across the AfCFTA state parts, creating a rules-based trading system that protect the interests of all participants while promoting fair competition. So this is some of the key objectives of the protocol. Yes, okay. This is some of the key objectives of the protocol: increasing intra-African trade, promoting regional value chain, create a single continental market, support industrialization development in the continent. I mentioned about the competitiveness, improve competitiveness of SMEs and African company, and reduce trade barrier. Next one.
I've been informed that I have 2 minutes, so I will go quite fast. So this is some of the core components of the protocol. I mentioned about the removal of the customer duty. The idea is that
in certain time, 97% of the products will be free of the customer duty. We are also discussing, and we conclude the discussion on automotive, and we are making progress in textile related with the local content. That is important to make sure that the products that are exporting or trade under the AfCFTA they are made in Africa with the local content. There's also another key component is the customer cooperation, trade facilitation related with customer, and of course non-tariff barriers and non-tariff measures like technical barrier to trade and sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Next one. So I mentioned about the tariff liberalizations. The idea is to have lower production costs, to have a big market, higher competitiveness, so that African goods become more competitive against imports, improve profitability, lower costs, and expand the markets that will allow SMEs and African enterprise to boost profits in reinvest in operation and a cross-border partnership that will promote joint ventures and cross-country marketing expansion. One of the very important components is related with the local content, the rules of origin that's defined, made in Africa and the world, what kind of product will benefit for tariff preference. It's also very important that you prevent transshipment of non-African goods seeking to exploit preferential rates. In terms of the impact is to protect local industry, to ensure fair competition, to encourage African sourcing, and to increase input demand. This is related with the customer cooperation. We can go to the next one. This is the key reform that is needed to facilitate trade, including streamlined procedures, authorized economic operator, also targeting high-risk shipment instead of examining a product, having this risk-based inspection, and also important is question related to the transparency requirement. Next one. This is just some of important provision related with the non-tariff barriers and the non-tariff measures. Next. Good. This is very important, not to Nigeria per se, but it's very important for the 16 landlocked countries in terms of the transit. There's procedures related with to lower transport costs and also to facilitate the transport of goods from one country to another. Next. Okay, good. Thank you very much. I hope I.
A round of applause for Mr. Antonio. He actually expanded the scope of his presentation. He took time to make presentations on the framework agreement itself before going to the protocol on trade and goods. So he needs double applause. Double applause. Thank you very much. I saw quite a number of people taking notes, and I see that the gentleman wanted to ask the question. Don't worry, we have split them up so you have the time to really ask your questions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, after trading goods, we have just 2 more presentations to go, so we're doing good with time. After trading goods, the natural follow-up is trading services. So we'll talk about trading services, and then we'll end with the protocol that we are championing, the protocol on digital trade. But before we get there, help me welcome, to give us an overview of the trading services protocol, Mr. Kola Shokola, Director Trade of the ECOWAS Commission. He's like, it's only the people in front that clap, those at the back. Yes. I was wondering whether the next one was not strong at the back. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. And I'm watching those people at the back that were not clapping. If you don't mind me. So first of all, let me appreciate the Honorable Minister for inviting the Commission to make this presentation, and I bring you greetings from His Excellency Dr. Umar Ali Toure, the President of the ECOWAS Commission, as well as Dr. Khalil Sina, Commissioner responsible for Economic Affairs and Agriculture. Let us also express our condolences to the loss of our dear brother, Olusegun Awolowo. Many of us knew him personally. In a professional capacity, he was also the first president of ECOWAS Trade Promotion Organization Network. Definitely be missed sorely. So going on to the presentation, trading goods. When we talk about trade, I think the thing that comes to most people's mind is our goods. You say trade, you talk about oil, minerals, but we forget a very important aspect: services. Lawyers, media, tourism, communication. This is all about services, and we really need to pay a close attention to this. I'll try in the next few minutes just to give you just a simplified overview of the motivation behind trade and services, not really going provision by provision, but just to try and explain the importance of trade and services, and also a little bit about how it is structured. So in the next slide, we talk about some of the motivation. The services sector is driving labor markets outcomes, and today's agreements, more jobs than any other are really created in the services sector. Services has become the main source of employment, both in high-income countries, but also in upper middle-income countries as well. In terms of the gender dimension as well, it plays an important role in women's economic empowerment. Services account for 87% in high-income countries, 43% in lower middle-income countries, and 30% in low-income countries. And that is up from a 19 percentage point. So it is growing, and it has a very strong gender dimension. It is also an increasingly larger amount of our gross domestic product. From 1970 to 2021, it grew from 53% to 67%, and today it generates about 75% of GDP in most developed countries. It now accounts for a greater share of GDP than either agriculture or industry. Next slide. So stay on this slide, please. So in terms of services in Africa, there are two traditional service sectors that dominate our services environment. And this is travel and this is transport. And they represent more than 2/3 of total trade in services. And traditional services are transport, travel, maintenance, and repair. And then we also have high knowledge intensive services that are heavily reliant on professional and high skill knowledge. Next slide. Let us walk back a little bit to see where trade and services fits within the overall architecture of the AfCFTA agreement. We all know, and we hopefully should grow to learn more about the agreement. It intends to really boost intra-African trade, a decision taken by the African Union heads of states and government in 2012, and also to really accelerate industrial development by establishing a single market that facilitates unrestricted movement of people, investment, goods, and services across the continent. The agreement itself has 8 protocols, which has annexes to them as well. So there are 8 key protocols, which were negotiated in 2 phases. So the first phase was goods, services, and then the dispute settlement system. And then the second phase, all the other protocols you've heard about so far: investment, intellectual property rights, competition, as well as digital trade, and women and youth in trade. So services featured in the first round of negotiations, and it fits in terms of importance. It's critically and equally as important as trade in goods as well. I think the slide is going faster than I'm talking, but next slide. Perhaps you wait for me to say next before we go ahead. Yes. Okay. Now I'm trying to catch up on where we are. Let's skip this slide. So I don't want to go protocol by protocol. Thank you. But to talk about the approach that was taken towards the negotiation on services. In simple terms, services were negotiated in terms of strict provisions, or should I say, a strict matrix in terms of how we want to ease a restriction on a particular sector. The second approach was to look at regulatory frameworks. How can we simplify, harmonize our regulatory frameworks? And the third approach is how do we mutually recognize each other's agreements? So if there was something that Nigeria, a certificate that Nigeria issues, how can this be recognized in South Africa, in Egypt, in Kenya? So these are the three approaches taken to liberalizing trade in services. With goods, it's easier. We know that it's an elimination of duties. In services, it's slightly different. So these are the three approaches that are being taken. Next slide, please. In terms of what trade in services is, according to the UN classification, there are 12 sectors. The ones I've highlighted are the ones that were, first of all, negotiated because they were done in phases. So the first 5 priority sectors focused on business, communication, financial, transport, and tourism. But remaining there, as you can see on the list, are other areas such as construction, distribution, education, energy, etc., etc. So these are very, very important sectors. But in terms of negotiations to manage the volume of work, the first 5 in red were considered. And we'd like to use this opportunity to congratulate the federal government of Nigeria for submitting its schedule that has been well received by the Commission for onward transformation of the AfCFTA. Now, the services sectors allows us to consider all areas, but there are some areas that are exempt. And the next slide, it talks very briefly about exemptions which include air transport. In this area, the protocol does not apply to air traffic rights and services directly related to the exercise of air traffic rights. But it does apply to aircraft repair, maintenance, marketing, and computer reservation systems. So there are certain things that are very, very, should I say, sensitive, which it does not apply to, but even within the air transport, are still areas that it does apply to. And this is also complementing what the African Union is doing to try and liberalize our air transport through the single African air transport market. It will wonder many of you to see that to travel within the continent, even within West Africa, you may have to go out of the region, out of the continent to come straight back in. And so these are some of the things that trade in services, but also more globally, single African air transport market is trying to tackle. Next slide. Now, trying to avoid lecturing, but I need to mention how do we essentially measure trade in services, and it's done through 4 main modes. So if you don't take anything away from this presentation, try and take away these 4 main modes: cross-border, consumption abroad, commercial presence, and presence of natural persons. And to try and simplify it, what we see here is when you talk about cross-border trade is when, as a Nigerian, you are in this country and you consume a service from abroad without having to go abroad. So let's say you have a subscription from The Economist. You could have that service sent to you in Nigeria without having to leave the comfort of your home. The second is consumption abroad. This is where, as a Nigerian, you would physically go abroad to consume that service. So, for example, tourism, going to a hotel. You leave Nigeria to go to a West African or an African country to consume hospitality services. The third is commercial presence. That is where a multinational or large corporation may want to now physically open a new branch in another country. So a bank in Nigeria may decide it needs to open a subsidiary in another country. That is commercial presence. And the fourth is, in the next slide, the movement of natural persons. And this is a temporary movement of skilled professionals. For example, you opened your bank and you want to now send a general manager for a period of time to go to that country to start up a business. So services are measured through these various sources. Next slide. So in terms of Nigeria's schedule, which was submitted and it's under analysis, what was noted is that Nigeria has really sought to capture the spirit of trading under the AfCFTA, and that is all about liberalizing its market. In Nigeria's submission, we have to compare that to what Nigeria currently offers to the rest of the world under the World Trade Organization. And compared to what it offers to the rest of the world, Nigeria has made significant advancements in offering African countries even more. So out of the sectors Nigeria currently offers to the rest of the world, it, I think, almost doubles in terms of the coverage, the openness it gives to African countries compared to the rest of the world. So that is really commendable. Furthermore, it also provides more clarity on ownership limitations. So it allows, for example, give more information about the equity provisions that foreign equity investors can hold. And it also provides significantly expanded markets.
Say remove from stage and they didn't show me.
Was about the natural movement of persons. So it provides that as well, all in the services amongst African countries. In the next slide, want to highlight that there are opportunities. So it is not simply about Nigeria or any West African country or any individual country just providing access by themselves, but there are also opportunities in other markets. So these are some examples of countries in Southern and East Africa whereby they have also decided to liberalize, open their markets more openly to African countries in business services, telecommunications, financial, tourism, etc. This really is a win-win for Africa. That is why trade and services are important. As I round this presentation, I wanted to just highlight some of the key benefits that accrue from the trade and services growth. It certainly allows and enables us to lower the time and the expense of transacting across borders. It provides an investment opportunity and thereby increases both local and foreign direct investment into our various economies. It will help create a better regulatory environment through harmonization of laws across the continent, facilities intra-African trade. Under the 4, for example, it allows for a mobile workforce that will be able to cross borders and use their existing credentials more easily. And to also allow member states to have a balance between the need to protect the economy, but also to allow trade to happen across member states, or should I say state parties. And the terminology state parties is used once a country has not only signed the agreement, but has also ratified and deposited the sentiments of ratification at the AfCFTA P3. So it allows member states or state parties to be able to protect their technical and national regulation without being unnecessarily bureaucratic or cause hindrances to international trade. And in the final slide, it talks about sharing of information and best practice by enhancing common understanding and cooperation on trade issues. It promotes the development of regional and continental value chain and helps to diversify goods and services. So, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, this is just an overview of trade and services. It's extremely important that many of you are perhaps already trading in services that recognize it complements trading goods. So we urge all of you to keep a very keen eye on trading services as the promotion of employment and growth for Nigeria and all Africa.
Another round of applause for Mr. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to cross the finish line. We're not far from it. We have just one more presentation. But I'd like to stress that tomorrow's engagement is very important. We'll be meeting for roughly 3 hours, max 2.5 hours, 3 hours max. Starting at 9:30, by 11:30 we should be rounding off and coming in. What will happen tomorrow is that as you come in, you'll be led into 3 different rooms. depending on what part of the P3 you represent. All public sector participants will be in one room. You have assignments that are going to be working on simplifying the AfCFTA processes and coming up with our barometer, fleshing out the national action plan. That's what will happen there. Now, all the private sector will be led into another room where you have private sector specific engagements going on and seeing also how the public sector can better support you to scale under the AfCFTA. And for the media, the press, you have a different room on the first floor, where I think that's trade intelligence room on the first floor. You'll be engaging with all the experts that have made presentations today. So all the experts that have made presentations will be with the media tomorrow in the morning for 2 hours. Afterwards, you come back together with Honorable Minister, have our closing plenary, and by noon, we are done. So it's important that for you to get maximal value from the P3 Summit, make sure you make yourselves available tomorrow morning, because that is when you really have to drill down and see how much value you can get from the event. With that said, I will welcome back to the stage Mr. Antonio to talk to us about the protocol that Nigeria is championing. Very important. Help me put your hands together with Mr. Gilberto Antonio. Do I think that we're getting hungry because the sound of the round of applause? Don't worry, just push the power. This is the last presentation, and then we take questions and we're done.
Okay, thank you, Patience. Thank you very much. So digital trade is happening already. If you are in Lesotho, you want to buy clothes from a South African shop, you can use apps to do it. If you are in Ghana, you want to make a payment to Nigerian apps and other apps can make it easy to make payments. So the idea is now to have a continental framework that will harmonize the rules and regulations of digital trade, and also important that we leverage on what exists already, what we are starting to do already at a national and continental level. Next slide. So in terms of the projection, we know that digital trade is happening, and some institutions project that the part of the digital trade in the continent will increase more and more. The projections that I put there is 108 billion by 2030. Of course, we have to deal with the fragmentations in terms of rules and regulation. That's why member states agreed to have a discussion and to have a continental framework dealing with the digital trade. So there's also the challenge that we may have in terms of building trust. Trade among each other, even in person, we may have a challenge to trust our neighbor. And when it comes to the online, to use the digital trade, buying something that is supposed to come from Burkina Faso, from Angola, you may have this challenge: should I trust or not? So the digital trade protocol is also a framework that is intended to increase the trust between member states and between business and between business and industry. Next slide. So it provides a legal framework for a secure, seamless, inclusive African digital single market that will promote intra-African trade, not only, but also innovation and industrialization. How it does it? First is to have an integrated approach. So there's a cross-cutting provisions that is related with trade in goods, related with trade in service, related with the investment, and related with the intellectual property rights. You may read some documents where they are talking about e-commerce. So it means when you are buying online. For AfCFTA, we go beyond that. So we go really on a digital trade that include also digital identity, that include also digital payment. So the provision that are there also, that's why the help this approach is cross-cutting in different sectors. And of course, when it comes to the policy, the same approach is used in trading goods and trading service. The intention is to have harmonized, aligned policy among the continent. Also very important is about the flow of data. So it's intended to facilitate cross-border data flows.
No, thank you.
Why? Sorry, but also guiding the privacy, the security, and the national sovereignty. Next one. So this is the why we have concluded this protocol is to have a unified Africa standard when it comes to digital trade, creating a legal certainty and reducing compliance costs. Is also to enable a digital commerce, facilitating the cross-border transactions through different tools like e-payment, e-signature, e-contract, and other essential digital trade tools. Very important when coming to this protocol is the consumer protection. I mentioned about trust. Trust we create with interoperable platform, but also with provisions that protect consumer when they are using this platform. And the intention, the idea is to have an African digital single market. Next.
Okay, send it to you.
Of course, we decide to go beyond just having provisions on the specific things, but to have also guiding values and principles. One is inclusion. It's a document where there's provisions that give priority to access to women, youth, and MSMEs to ensure that no one is left behind. Another principle that is very important is about technology neutrality. We want to maintain flexibility by avoiding a preference for specific technology or system. Why? Because if we have technology neutrality, there are windows for allowing more innovation in the continent. There's also transparency and predictability to ensure that there's a clear, stable digital regulation that provides business and consumer with the confidence and long-term planning. You may, if you are trading across the border, you may see some or having some experience where in the country where you are trading, the legislation is always changing. So the predictability is very important. I mentioned about trust and security, to have a secure digital environment by having robust privacy protection, a cybersecurity standard, and a data governance framework. Last but not least is to preserving each state the right to regulate in the public interest, including protecting public health, safety, or national security. So this is why the AfCFTA has a framework on digital trade. Is to boost intra-African trade by removing barriers, eliminating legal and technical barriers to digital trade, I mentioned about harmonizing the regulation to create a unified standard in different areas like data governance, cybersecurity, trust service, digital transactions. Also very important, I mentioned that is one of the guiding principles is the questions of interoperability. And last but not least is to promote entrepreneurship and to expand connectivity. Next one. So when you are working on harmonizing regulations, policy, laws, you have first to work on having the terms, a common definition of what you are regulating or what you are discussing. So the protocol has a key definitions, for example, about the digital product, what is digital product? For example, about the digital trade, what do we understand as a digital trade? And it goes also to digital identity, electronic signature, authentication, and what is personal data. Next. So the protocol is applied to all laws, all regulations, all procedures related with cross-border digital trade. There's however two exceptions, is when it's related with the government procurement or when it's related with the sensitive government data. Next one. So this is how the protocol is structured. So they have specific areas related to market access, rules of origin, what is African digital product, related with the non-discrimination principle to make sure that if a company, a Nigerian company is competing in Ghana, it will not be discriminated by being Nigerian. There's also related with the trade integration, you know, how important is going to paperless procedures. Emerging technology, this is a very important provisions that is related with the AI, with the blockchain, and some of the emerging technology. Very important is related with the data. How can you make sure that a company in Nigeria who is opening a company in South Africa, yes, consumer data in South Africa, you want to transfer here because the treatment center is here, how to make sure that this data can be allowed to move, but also to make sure that it's not sensitive data, or if it's personal, how you will deal with the interest. And I mentioned again trust and security, that is really, really very important for us. There are provisions, clear provisions related to cyber security, and it's also related to consumer protection and as well. Next. So we have negotiated the main protocol that was adopted by the heads of state and governments last year. And this year we concluded the annex. The annex is part of the protocol, but the annex is more detailed rules, more technical standard, there are more operational guidance that clarify or enhance the provisions that is not on the main agreement. So we have these annexes on rules of origin to define what is African product, on cross-border payments to make it easy and easier for fintech, for digital platform, on digital identity to have a standard when it comes to digital identity policy and mutual recognition, on online safety, on the financial technology, fintech, on emerging technology, and also on the source code disclosure to limits and condition for government access to property source code. Next.
Okay. Anyway, you are here already.
So, of course, when trade lawyers, when negotiators are sitting to agree on a legal framework,
they are dealing with some issues. Why a protocol or agreement is needed is to deal with a particular matter. So when come, for example, for market access for digital products, the challenge in Africa has been the high cost barrier from cross-border digital, and very often also there is a difference in terms of the treatment between the companies. If this digital platform or enterprise is foreign versus the local one, and all these restrain platform, restrain business to grow in terms of opportunity. So there's a clear provision, no customer duty on the digital product. There's clear provisions ensuring that there's no discrimination. There's provisions also supporting African digital content industry.
Take.
One important question related is I want to buy a product from a country X, from a Gabon. So there are certain enablers that will allow me to do that. One is the trust service. What is the legal interpretation of the legal value of an e-signature? See, if someone sends you a mail like a contract, is this have in your country or in his country the same value as a physical signature? They are related with the digital identity. You want to know who's this company. There's also, of course, when you are starting to do a cross-border trades, one of the very important is the questions of payments. If you use the traditional bank, you may have some challenge in terms of the delay. It can take 2 to 12 days. In terms of also fees, you have to pay some fees, given that in most of the cases in Africa, when you are making payment from Nigeria, a Nigerian bank will send it to a correspondent bank in London. If you have a partner in Angola, it will send it to a correspondent bank in London, and the correspondent bank in London will send it to Angola and correspondent bank in Portugal, and from Portugal we go to Angola. So there are fees. There are also in terms of delay. So the digital payments can accelerate this payment. There's, of course, I mentioned about customer procedures, this paperless trade. Here is just a detail of some of the elements that I mentioned about the trust service. Next one. Here is related with the digital and the paperless trades. The idea is that digital version of the customer document, the license, permit, and certificate of origin should be accepted. Next. Also important is the questions, how can you make sure that the company that you want to partner or you want to provide service or you want to buy is a real one. So there's a provisions to secure authentication, enable reliable verification, to expand access and also to reduce the fraud. Next. I already mentioned about digital payments, and I also mentioned that there's a provision on main agreements, but also there's an annex related with digital payments. Okay, go to the next one. This is very, very important about the digital infrastructure. I mentioned digital identity is part of the digital infrastructure, adopting digital public infrastructure, digital payments also. But very important is related with the data. The next slide is about the data governance. If you can go to the next one.
Yeah, so this is really very important. You have a platform in Nigeria, or you have a bank in Nigeria, you have you open another one in Togo. You don't need to create a center to treat data. Everywhere you open, you want to have a specialized team somewhere. Now is what are the legal provision existing in the Togo that will allow you to make a transfer of data. The idea here is really that the data flow can be as fluid as possible. Of course, protecting some data that we consider as a sensitive, the personal data. Or the data that the government may consider that is sensitive in terms of national security. Okay, so this is I will share after. It's just more detail in terms of what the protocol has in terms of the provision related to cross-border data transfer. Next one, also related with the personal data protection to make sure that data are protected, and that's the protection that you give in your country. If you are making transfer, you have to be sure that you will be treated in the same way in terms of how it's protected. Next one. Here is about innovation and computer facility. Is to not have legislation that will require that because the data is produced in Togo, it has to be treated in Togo. What we want is the continental market. Of course, we accept the idea that the data should not be treated in the US or other country, but is to allow that if the data is treated in Africa, it has to be allowed to be transferred. Next one. Here is, I mentioned multiple times about the question of consumer trust. So there's a very interesting provisions about cybersecurity, online safety. The idea is to have build a secure and trustworthy digital environment that is essential for sustainable growth of a digital economy. I also mentioned about how the principle, how this legal framework makes sure that no one is left behind. The principle of inclusion that is related to the micro and the small media enterprise and some specific population, youth, disability, people with disability, women, and so on. Yeah, so it's a quick presentation to show how this protocol is important. Please note that is very innovative. Africa is the only continent, the only regional trade agreement, if you want to mention like that, with the binding legal documents on the digital trade to leverage the existing already digital trade, digital payment, and e-commerce in the continent. Thank you very much.
As usual, another round of applause for Mr. Antonio. I know that there has been a dump of information. The expectation is not for everybody to fully understand it, but it's to generate sufficient interest such that you can engage with the experts in the course of the rest of today and tomorrow. At least you have a fairly better understanding, and hopefully between today and tomorrow, as you engage with them, you will even appreciate the protocols even more. All right. we are at the time that we'll take questions and answers, and I know that some people have been itching. But just before that, let me invite Dr. Ifeoma to join me on stage. She's the Regional Coordination Specialist of UNDP. Please make her welcome. We just finished sharing a presentation about the protocol on digital trade. Now she has some interesting information to give to us about what Nigeria recently did with that protocol, aside from the ratification of it.
Thank you. I promise I will be quick. So about a month ago, Nigeria held a roundtable with 5 countries: Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, and South Africa, on this very protocol. The key question there was, okay, we have this, we're champions, what happens next? And it's important to have this caveat because, like we just heard from the presentation, this is very new. So in the way you heard for goods, there is there's tariffs. Services, we heard about the goods of this and that. We don't have that for this. And so what Nigeria has done, which I think is incredible, of course I'm biased, is to say that, can we convene ourselves? Can we all state what it is that we're doing, in the sense of, if my fintech is going to Ghana, what happens? What is the specific barrier per country? And what is the specific facilitation mechanism in each one? And now what that does for the Nigerian private sector is it's very clear, if you're trying to trade or export or expand into these countries, you know the specific rules to comply with, how to comply. For us as well, it's important to also see, because you're also able to immediately begin to track this kind of trade, because you understand the baselines and what needs to be done. And what is also exciting for us as a country is that for the first time, as far as I know, there's a mapping done of who trades these kinds of things. So you know who's in fintech, who's in insurtech, who's in transportation tech, who's in food tech, and we saw all kinds of tech. And I think, well, people are doing all kinds of things. But it gives the country a head start as the champion to begin to trade these things on a bigger stage. So I promise I'll be quick. I'll hand it back.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ife, for keeping your words as well. But that's not the last we hear of you today, I'm sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the point where we will take questions, and then we'll try to answer the questions. We have our experts in the room. We have other experts that have not spoken but are happy to answer the questions. And because I realize that sometimes the question of one person inspires the second person to ask a question, so we'll try not to do that. Because this question and answer session is what is standing between us and lunch. So we kindly request, just by show of hands, how many people have questions? I'd like to start from the gentleman who wanted to ask. So I'm counting your hand up already. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All on this side. I'm wondering whether the network was not working on this other side. Let's do it again. Okay, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's it. If you have any further questions, 9. We have capped it at 9. We have 3 ladies and 6 men. I would kindly request that you ask your question, just go straight to the point. Please don't make another presentation while you're asking your questions. Just go straight to the point. Can I have a microphone? Yes, please let me see the 9 hands again. I see the lady at the back. I see the 2 ladies here, 3. Yes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay. So we have our 9 questions set. And I'd like to start from the gentleman who was going to ask a question earlier. Please, you can mention your name. Are you from public, private, or press? Because press would like to, please, of the 9 people, is there anybody who, among the 9 hands, is a member of the media? Because we're not taking questions from the media today. They have a full day or half a day tomorrow to do their questions. Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Babatunde Ajayi. I'm the group head, business banking for UBA Group. My question, first, I just want to thank all the facilitators. Thank you for your very good job. It's been a very, very enlightening session. I've been able to go through the slide and I got it now. But my question is, are you going to give us this document? Are you going to send it to us, please? Very, very useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take the next question.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief and not in any particular sequence, but myself as Suleiman Debayo, now representing the private sector, and to say how happy and excited I am to be on the other side and to give perspective from the private sector. But before then, let me say I'm proud of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment under the leadership of Her Excellency the Honorable Minister, because what has been done since I retired in 2023, is it the investment summit? Is it the publications on the implementation status of AfCFTA and several other champions? Many accolades. Congratulations and commendation to the Honorable Minister. The second one is also to appreciate all the resource persons. Very insightful, very informative. I'll give recommendation. I'm almost there.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Just get there.
Yes. But let me also say the following. Okay, so I'll reserve. Okay, let me ask a question now.
Thank you.
And the question will be very open and direct.
Okay.
Nigeria is a member of WTO. 1. Nigeria is a member of ECOWAS. 2. Nigeria has commitments in ECOWAS, in WTO, and the rest. How do we coordinate and harmonize to the extent that we do not backtrack in our commitments and we don't have over-commitment? I think that's number 1. Number 2, services about regulations. How do we ensure that we don't have over-regulation in terms of services? The third one is how do we ensure... Okay, let me conclude. Let me conclude on the note that critical input will be required from private sector on many of these issues to ensure that the positions of the private sector are reflected, not only in the negotiation, but in the outcome of the negotiation.
Thank you very much.
I will be ready to contribute more tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Your 2 questions are well noted. Let me kindly request that please ask us one question. Even the presenters are hungry. Lunch is very close. Ask us one question so they can answer you straight. So next, yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Ali Awad, retired Director of Trade in the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. So I have 2. One is observation and recommendation on the protocol submitted, presented so far. The first one is protocol on women and youth.
Yeah.
Very important because they are important segments of the population. If we want to take everybody along, they need to be carried out. So the question is, yeah, my recommendation, I know we have launched these 8 chapters on AfCFTA while I was in the ministry. This event will not be the final one. How do we continue to take the message or the content of those of that protocol and so that the message will sink in? That is one. Lastly, it's just a passing comment.
We are taking time.
Yes.
Please.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. So please, I don't have to remind anybody. No. The initial hands, please, yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. My question is, okay, my name is Kenneth. I work for UBA. I have transaction banking for UBA. My question is around the problem is when the tire hits the tracks. We have all these protocols, for example. Is there a timeline for domestication by all the back countries? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please let's see the hands towards the back. The initial hands, please. We've taken 4, 5 more to go. Yes, sir.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Yahya Goji. Now, quickly, about services. I will need, we'll need to have more information about services in the African free trade. I'm coming from the angle of quality infrastructure. So, but in that particular aspect, how does it operate out there? Thank you.
Okay, I think Dr. Ife, since Kola is not around, we're just making the notes. Yes. One more questions?
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm not section from Person Consult. So I noted something while one of the speakers was presenting. So he was saying that they are building a framework whereby if you're having Naira, you can spend it across the entire African continent. So I was not asking, is it not better to have a unified African currency, like Pan-African currency, that you don't need to, convert or, try to determine what will be the exchange rate? Because you very well know that the exchange rates across these countries are not really the same. So if that's going to work, let's see how it's going to happen. And if it's not going to work, let's see what's going to happen.
Okay, thank you. I think that question will be for, I don't know whether it's for Gainmore. There was a lady at the back. I'm not sure this gentleman had his hand up, so please let's just stick with the people who had their hand up initially. Tomorrow we give you another opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. My name is Omotayo Dada. I am a lawyer and I work with the consulting firm. Thank you so much for all the rich discussions we've had. So my question is on the practicality of some of the things that have been discussed. So I would like to know the engagements that have happened, especially for trading goods with customs officials in all these other countries, especially countries where Nigerian businesses and exporters are interested in. I had an interesting conversation with a CEO here, and she mentioned that she's reluctant to trade with African countries because there's some form of hostility from their customs. So I'd like to know what the ministry is doing in engaging with customs officials, especially for goods trade in other African countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thankfully, we have a customs official here, so we won't get second-hand information, he will tell you himself. So we have two ladies here. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Yemisi Shito with the John Benz Group. And my question is about digital trade. Because we know that across Africa, there are very varying levels of sophistication in terms of digital tools. So, I mean, there are some countries that are still very cash-backed, and others like Nigeria and South Africa are very advanced in terms of fintech. So, how is that going to be managed?
Okay, thank you. And then our final question.
Good afternoon. My name is Kadiri Halima, and I'm from NAFDAC. My question has to do with trading goods, and I want to get some clarification on the issue of regulatory harmonization within the continent for the acceptability of goods, and in order to reduce the burden of compliance. What has been done? Has it been concluded? And at what level it is for effective implementation of AfCFTA? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for all those very, very useful questions, which says to me that we're paying attention when the presentations were going on. Thank you. That is already mission accomplished. Let me start by knocking off one of the questions. The first one, yes, we will be giving out the presentations. I had mentioned earlier, if you did not indicate your email address when you were registering, this is the time to do so, because we'll send it to you by email. All right, I will now open the floor to our experts. We have questions on different protocols, on trading goods, on trading services, on PAPs, which I will give to Gain. Maybe I should start with Gainmore, PAPs, and then we'll take it up from there. Can we have the microphone, please?
Okay, thank you very much. I think, yes, that question has been asked several times in various platforms. I think what I would like to say is that we acknowledge that one day we will need to move towards a unified currency or an African currency, whether you call it Afro, we've done a lot of research or work on that one. But we actually are of the view that you need to take some steps, gradual and progressive steps. You start by implementing a Pan-African payment and settlement system, which will basically allow us to trade in African currencies. As you are doing that, you will start seeing some of the key currencies emerging. Then that will be now a pattern that we can use as a basis to now move to the next step. But we are also even looking at the possibility of looking at digital currency. So these are some of the issues that we're actually studying, but we'll need to do some extensive engagements with the central bank governors on some of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for him. I would also like to knock off the second question that talked about how do we cascade this to women and youth beyond at a national level, and to tell you that the Honorable Minister has approved that come 2026 we'll have regional engagements. So P3, P4 regional engagements at the different geopolitical zones, where we'll be engaging states and even the local governments. So for the local governments is on one product that can be exported and how we can support them to do that. So it is something that is very actively in sight for 2026. There was a question around fragmentation, our commitments under other multilateral instruments, and how this can be dealt with under the AfCFTA. So I would like to ask any of the experts can speak on it. Kamara, you want to go?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Rachel. We are mindful of the fact that we did not negotiate in silos. We were mindful of what our commitment in the WTO was, and then the regs served as the building block for the AfCFTA. So what we did was we did more relief from work that has been done. Remember some of this, for instance, at a higher level in terms of its operations, now a customs we did more relief from them, and then we were able to bring together all these two people. So as anything that is inside draws from all these institutions in the entire framework.
Thank you very much. I can also see that under the protocol on investment, cognizance is taken of our multilateral obligations. And if you read the protocols, the provisions have already been made for how we should ensure that some of those commitments were also taken into account in negotiating a number of the protocols. So they're not necessarily at variance one with the other. Let's move to trade in services. I think there are two questions, one about overregulation of services and another one about general more information on services. I think that one on general more information we can deal when the person sees you privately. So overregulation of the services framework.
Okay, can I ask the person to please ask it again? I missed this one. Ask the question.
Yeah, you just asked what can be done about overregulation in the services sector.
What can be done? Oh, right, overregulation. But I think we covered that in the presentation where we're beginning to see that there's simplified frameworks across the continent. The idea is that we will all, agree to the same types of rules. So it's not as though we're trying to create more rules within the AfCFTA. If anything, we're trying to clearly state what the rules are now, and then how can all those rules align and be simplified for the private sector. But I'm here, and then for the go forward.
Okay, so let me move now to investment. There was a question around the timeline for domestication, timeline for alignment. So let's use the investment protocol as a guinea pig to answer the question.
Thank you. Yes, it's true that in my presentation I went quickly on that, but the protocol investment, for example, provide clear timeline and deadline. For example, in translating this commitment in the national level, 5 years after the entry into force of the protocol, and at the regional level as well, where we have regional instrument law. The protocol provides 5 to 10 years more time to align with the protocol. So there are very specific timelines within the action, and these are 2 examples, for example.
Okay, and that example cuts across all protocols, so there are definitive timelines. Let me now move to customs. Officer Nafiu. Somebody asked about the practicality of the issues, like we do a lot of talking. In practical terms, what exactly is going on? Has customs engaged with other customs across the continent? What have those engagements been like?
I think the answer here is AfCFTA is just like broader rec. Already we have something like ECOWAS, and we have been trading under ECOWAS, and it has been successful. So what we have at AfCFTA is just like opening it more to other countries, to the continent as well. And all the state parties, any country that has acceded to the agreement have an obligation to integrate. And like in Nigeria, I'm the DCA. I have sent my signature. I'm the other.
Please, what does DCA mean? Let's not pretend.
It is an Nigerian competent authority who is authorized to endorse certificate of origin. So we have a platform whereby we have special signatures from all countries that have acceded to the agreement. So once there is a transaction from any of the countries, what we need to do is to go to that site and ensure that the signature is one of the designated signatures. Once we recognize it, we accept.
Thank you very much. Yes, Kamara.
Last week, Nigeria held a very big meeting of all the beaches. I was part of that meeting here, where a lot of these issues were addressed, where we came together to discuss customs integration in the continent. So I think that should be taken into consideration.
Thank you very much, Kamara, for adding value. And just to say, a lot of these questions you're asking, by the time we're done with P3, those are the things we'd like to interrogate tomorrow. So we come up, the Honorable Minister has directed that we'll come up with an ABC series, the ABC of Trade in Goods under AfCFTA in Nigeria, the ABC of Trade in Services, over these 5 protocols. So by the time we're done tomorrow, we'll have simplified language that will demonstrate and let you know what the answers to a lot of these questions and more are. So it makes it easier for the private sector to take advantage of it. I'll come to you, Gilberto, finally. There was a question about how digital trade can be managed on the continent. And then there was another question, which you are at liberty to answer, or any other colleague can answer, about regulatory harmonization across the continent. What exactly, have there been any developments?
Thank you very much. What will happen with the digital trade protocol is what happened with all the international agreements. The document was adopted by the heads of state and the government. This is the first step. The second step is that each individual country will ratify, going to the domestic procedures to engage binding itself to this agreement. And when we will have at least 22 members who has done so, the digital trade protocol will enter to force. And after when is it to force, countries who have finalized the ratification process, they will now work on its implementation with, of course, the support of the partners in the AfCFTA's secretariat. Nowadays, good news, given that the protocol was just signed last year, and the annex, the 8th annex that I mentioned, was adopted only this year. We have already good news that one of the big players when it comes to fintech, when it comes to digital trade, has ratified the protocol. You may know Nigeria, so it's a good step. So now we will leverage on this ratification, successful ratification, to advocacy, to advocate to other countries to join this process also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just please put your hands together. To add on regulatory harmonization, one of the key mandates of the CCC is to ensure policy and legal alignment. So there is work already going on in that respect. A member of the CCC, a critical member is the Federal Ministry of Justice, so we're working with them to ensure that we have that done. On the implementation of the Digital Trade Protocol, the Honorable Minister, as she mentioned in her speech, at the last but one Council of Ministers, worked with the AfCFTA Secretariat to come up with the EDGE implementation strategy. So that strategy will see to digital inclusion, advancement of public digital infrastructure, access to data, data for development, resource mobilization, not just for implementing in Nigeria, but implementing across all of Africa. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for your attention. Please put your hands together for yourself. We have been a very engaging and active audience. Our apologies to those whose questions we couldn't take today. The good news is that we're coming back tomorrow. Okay, we're coming back tomorrow. So I understand that we need to take the national pledge to close the session for today, but bearing in mind that the meeting is not closed, it will only be closed after the session tomorrow, very early afternoon. Tomorrow in the morning, the public sector, those are the people whose tags have green colors, you'll be meeting in rooms 2 and 3, because the hall will be demarcated, so you see 2 and 3. Meeting room 2 and 3, you just come in through that door. Those of us in the private sector, the people in the private sector, you meet in room 1, and then the press, you will meet on the first floor at the market intelligence room on the first floor. Our meeting time is 9:30. We start at 9:30, by 12 noon, we have wrapped it up. So ladies and gentlemen, can we all rise to our feet? Lunch is served immediately after the pledge. All right, let's take the national pledge. I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend her unity, and uphold her honor and glory. So help me God. All right, see you tomorrow. Lunch is served. The ushers will take you to the location of lunch. I will look forward to receiving you very early tomorrow at 9:30.
I want to take them, please. Can we go back a bit, please? Thank That's